When you think of the best video game series to play with all of your friends and family that features Super Mario and the rest of his gang, the first thing you think of is Mario Kart, let's be real here. But Mario Party would probably be your second choice. Mario Party is a lot of fun. The idea of basically making an interactive board game but making it more engaging by including minigames and chaotic events happening on the boards is not only genius, but also one that Mario Party managed to succeed in flying colors. So much so that pretty much every mainline Mario Party sequel up to 8 have pretty much kept the same gameplay style of the original game, only refining it with each game introducing a new set of boards, minigames, and generally improving on what came before. It was an idea that worked wonderfully. And then Mario Party 9 happened, where Nintendo attempted to completely change up how the game played, and no one was happy. Now, if Mario Party 9 had been released and Nintendo moved on and returned to the classic Mario Party formula, I don't think this game would be all that infamous in retrospect. A Mario Party game that strayed away from the original gameplay formula in an attempt to do something different, where have I heard that before? However, Mario Party 9 is infamous in that it was the beginning of what many would call a massive losing streak for the franchise. Between 2012 to 2017, Nintendo would release a total of 5 Mario Party installments, 1 on Wii, 1 on Wii U, and 3 on 3DS. I personally dubbed these 5 entries as the Mario Party Dark Age, mostly because every single one of these games would receive mixed to negative reception from both critics and fans, bashing each of these games for straying away from the classic Mario Party formula in an attempt to bring something new. Though that in and of itself made me curious, are these games really as bad as people made them out to be just because they tried to do something different? This is a question that I've had ever since I made my Mario Party 9 retrospective video from a year ago, where I was curious as to if the game really was as bad as people online said it was. I mean, if Ant Dude told me that the game sucks, then it has to be true, right? However, after making that video, I came around to actually liking the game. It was alright actually. So that got me interested in checking out all of these other games and seeing if any of them are potentially hidden gems. Especially since besides hearing people complain about how these games don't play like the originals, I rarely see anyone ever talk about these games to any extent. So that's what I'm gonna do today. I'm gonna take a look at all 5 of the games in the Mario Party Dark Age saga. This will surely be a good use of my time by the end of the video. As I said at the beginning of the video, I had already played Mario Party 9 before when I made an entire retrospective video about it. And even after replaying the game again for this video, my thoughts on it have more or less remained the same. So I'm just going to go through the main bullet points I said from that video for this segment. Also, not that most of you would necessarily care, but this time around I actually did get someone to play the game with me, so that's kind of epic. Arguably the most infamous aspect about Mario Party 9 would be the complete change to how the main board game mode in the game works. So here's the TLDR of how Mario Party 9 works. Instead of being able to traverse around the boards in Mario Party 9 are now linear, as in the boards literally start off at a point A and they end at a point B. Instead of collecting coins, which you would then spend on stars as the main collectible, you now collect mini stars, and they are the only collectible in the game. Whoever just has the most amount of mini stars by the end of the board is the winner. Instead of everyone moving around the board independently, everyone now moves together via a car. And finally, a minigame no longer happens after every player takes a single turn. Now it happens either when someone lands on a dedicated minigame space or when the game notices that nobody has landed on a dedicated minigame space in a while and so just gives you one randomly. Which I still find really funny since it clearly shows a big flaw in the way they designed the game and they went about fixing it in the most half-assed way possible. And that's pretty much the basic rundown of how the main board game mode in Mario Party 9 works. There are certain gimmicks that happen on specific boards that change the way you play it, but for the most part, every board in Mario Party 9 works like this. And honestly, from the couple of boards that me and my friend decided to play, it wasn't that bad. Obtaining mini stars from either collecting them from the board or earning them from doing well in minigames is fine by itself, but we found ourselves having a lot more fun trying our best to avoid losing them. Going back to the board specific gimmicks, most of them can basically be boiled down to doing one of two things, either giving you an opportunity to earn a lot of mini stars or an opportunity to lose a lot of them. some. Some of these were definitely done better than others. I recall the Bob-omb Factory board having a gimmick where a Bob-omb can spawn on your car and it can blow up on someone's turn and make them lose mini stars. And one of these is placed around the very end of the board, meaning if you get hit by that specific Bob-omb, you basically lose the game. It kinda sucks. But some of these were kind of decent, like in Magma Mine where a pool of magma slowly rises each turn and you all have to roll high numbers to avoid it catching up to you. Me and my friend had a blast recording on this board. It was really intense but really fun. A common complaint that I hear a lot about Mario Party 9 is that the new car mechanic completely removes the skill aspect that helped keep the OG Mario Party gameplay formula balanced. And I'm not going to say that those complaints are entirely wrong. MP9 does feel more luck based and the element of strategy is mostly lacking here, unfortunately. But at the very least there are these special dice blocks that you can acquire, which you can then use to get a higher chance to obtain any mini stars on the board or to avoid any of these purple subtraction mini stars. Overall, the new car mechanic in Mario Party 9 is just okay. I think its biggest flaw above all else is that it makes the game a lot less engaging. Like when it's not your turn, you can just look away from the screen and then look back when it's your turn again and feel like you kinda missed nothing. Ultimately, it is inferior compared to the classic Mario Party mechanics, but in terms of creating something new, you could do much worse than this.
Bury me in elephant green screen effect.
It's kind of a shame that the main mode in Mario Party 9 is the most mixed aspect about the game because I pretty much have nothing but positive things to say about the rest of the game. The environments for some of the boards are really interesting, the graphics look great for a standard definition Wii game, the music is shockingly super memorable, and the minigames here are genuinely really great, especially the motion control ones. They blow pretty much all of the motion control minigames from Mario Party 8 out of the water. Though admittedly that isn't exactly a high bar to cross, sometimes I'll be having a nice day and then remember the existence of Flip the Chimp and then my day would automatically be ruined. There are also a ton of different minigame modes, a couple of bonus side games, a story campaign to give something for the solo players, and a museum where you can spend the party points you get from playing the game to acquire bonus vehicles, additional game modes, and constellations. Overall, I found Mario Party 9 to be perfectly alright. It's not going to compete with the Mario Party games before it, but on its own, I think there's enough good stuff here to make this game at least worth trying out if you're curious. Anyways, that's one game down, 4 more to go.
Fuck you!
Mario Party Island Tour is a game that has always intrigued me. It's actually one of the 2 games in this video that I had never played before. Here's a fun little story. When I was a kid, I recall going to GameStop one day where my parents allowed me to get any 3DS game I wanted, and I was not able to make up my mind on whether I wanted to get this game or Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. I may have spent an unbearable amount of time deciding which game to get because eventually my dad got super fed up with waiting, and so he resorted to just flipping a coin to decide which game I get. The coin ended up landing on tails, and that was the story of how I ended up with my copy of Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. Since then, I never gave Island Tour a second look up until now, so let's see what's in store. First thing foremost, I want to talk about how stupid this game's story is. I know it's kind of silly to complain about the story in a party video game, but get a load of this. So Mario and friends all notice this letter coming from the sky saying they are all invited to the Party Islands. Then the characters get into bubbles, float across the sky, find the Party Islands, cut to title screen. That's it? That's the best you can come up with? That story was on par with the one from Mario Party 4's opening, but at least that one had the characters be invited to a party cube, which was at least a nice little metaphor to the console that game was released on. But this? Nah man, this is just poo. So the most interesting thing about Island Tour's main board game mode is that every single board in this game has its own unique set of rules. Not one board in Island Tour plays the same as another. So I'm going to cover each of them one by one and give my thoughts on whether they are fun to play. First off, Perilous Palace Path. So the objective here is to be the first player to make it to the very end of the board to win. After everyone makes a full turn, a minigame will happen where you will be given a bonus dice block depending on how well you perform at the minigame, which you can then use with your normal dice block to make more progress on the board. If this gameplay mechanic sounds familiar to you, it should, since this is pretty much just a rip of Wii Party's Board Game Island mode. I don't really like Board Game Island mode in Wii Party that much. It's a game that actively punishes you for being good at it, and it is so heavily RNG based, with the little challenges you do in the game board being pure luck. Oh, maybe you'll pick the right line of crates, or maybe you won't. Maybe you'll not fall off the cliff, or maybe you won't. It's just really damn annoying to play, honestly. And guess what? what, Perilous Palace Path and Island Tour also has these types of challenges, and they have the exact same problem. This blows. It basically boils down to this entire board being completely luck-based. It's random if you'll make any progress with these dice, and it's random if you'll make it through any of these challenges. The only opportunity where skill is involved in this board is when you're playing a minigame, and that's taking into account that the minigame you get isn't completely luck-based. If it is, then there you go, zero strategy. There are these items that you can obtain throughout the board, but there's never a good reason to not immediately use them once you obtain them, because the majority of them end up doing one of two things. They either make you move more spaces to get to the end sooner, or they screw over one of your opponents to make them not get to the end sooner. The other biggest flaw with this board is the pacing of it. I didn't bring it up in the last segment, but Mario Party 9's pacing on the boards is relatively quick. Each board in that game takes about half an hour to complete, but that time sweeps by very quickly thanks to the car mechanic. However, in Perilous Palace Path, which by the way, I'm getting really sick of pronouncing this board's title, it's so bad. Makes me spit all over the place. I feel like Daffy Duck from that one Space Jam clip.
3D Land?
Even though the boards are linear like the ones in 9, everyone now moves on their own, which means that the game lasts a whole lot longer. But don't just take my word for it, Island Tour itself actually tells you how long an average game for each board goes on for. And for this board, it is roughly between 45 minutes to an hour long. And my god, do you feel every minute of that just slowly go by? It's mind-numbing. I'm done talking about this board. It's awful. Perilous Palace Path? More like, Perilous Poop Path. Ooh, got him. The next board is Bonsai Bill's Mad Mountain. The objective here is to once again be the first to make it to the end of the board. The main gimmick in this one is that one side of your dice has a Bonsai Bill on it, and if you roll on that, then a Bonsai Bill will be launched across the board, hitting everyone in its way and making the players lose progress. You could avoid getting hit by it, however, by going into these safe spots, with the only penalty being that you won't make that much progress on your next turn. This one also sucks. Keep in mind that this board only lets you roll one dice block each turn, no more, no less, so you already barely make any progression on the board without going into these safe spaces. So when you have to go into these, I don't exactly feel relieved in any way, just mildly annoyed because the game is not going to go on for much longer. And sure, I can just not go into them, but getting hit by the Bonsai Bill causes you to go back all the way to the beginning of the board or to the halfway checkpoint once you pass it. And no matter where you are on the board, losing your progress and having to get back to where you were with a single dice block that can only go from 1 to 5, yeah, it's not worth it, so you might as well go into these whenever you can. It's such a frustrating gimmick, and just like the last board, this one is also influenced a lot by luck because of how the Bonsai Bill can just be triggered by a random dice roll. And even if I were to say that I didn't hate this gimmick, or even if I said that it was the greatest thing on planet Earth, my enjoyment would ultimately be short-lived because this board is aggressively small. It's the smallest one in the entire game, in fact. On one hand, I should be happy that I don't have to tolerate this awful board for that long, but on the other hand, it makes you wonder why they even included it in the game if it's going to offer such a small experience. Yet another awful board. We're now 2 for 2 here. Cool. Up next is Star-Crossed Highway. So in this one, you have to once again reach to the end of the board, but this time around, it's no longer your main objective. Wow, switching things up. Instead, your objective is to now collect mini stars. Oh, screw you! Yeah, so this board is pretty much just Mario Party 9 if you remove the car. That's pretty much it. The board is separated by 4 segments, and at the end of each segment, there's a podium where you can earn some mini stars. I would complain about this mechanic being really luck-based, but thankfully you can also earn some mini stars by performing well in the minigame, so I guess that's something. I wasn't that much of a fan of this board either. It's basically taking the game mechanics from a previous game and just making it less fun to play by making everyone move individually. But you know what? I'll give Star-Crossed Highway this. It's so far the best board that I have played in Island Tour so far, mainly because it's the first board to feature a gimmick that wasn't annoying to play. It also wasn't fun to play, but hey, it wasn't annoying, I'll give it that. The next board is Rocket Road. So in this one, you have to yet again reach to the end of the board to win the game. By the way, when I said that each board in Island Tour has their own unique set of rules at the beginning of this segment, I really thought the ideas they had would be a lot more interesting, but so far they've all just kind of been the same shtick of whoever makes it to the end of the board first is the winner, and that's honestly really disappointing. Going back to Rocket Road, the main gimmick in this board is the introduction of boosters, which multiply your dice rolls. You can also stack these boosters to make your dice rolls go even higher, but the catch is that the dice has a 0 sign, meaning there's a chance that any boosters you use up in one turn can end up going to waste. Now with all of that being said, this board is insanely broken. And to explain what I mean by that, I'd have to go into more detail, so sit down everyone, because I'm about to go full on nerd mode up in here. So as a reminder, you can stack boosters in one turn to increase the number of which your dice rolls get multiplied. You add one booster, your roll gets doubled, you add two boosters, your roll gets tripled, so on and so forth. The way you get boosters in this board is mostly by either landing on a booster space or by doing well in the minigames. And the board you're doing this on is super short, only being 25 spaces long from where you start. I found out that by the time you get at least 3 boosters by playing the board normally, you would get a roughly 1 in 3 chance of winning the game if you use up all of your boosters in one roll, alongside a 1 in 6 chance of rolling a 0, and the rest of that will make you move forward a good number of spaces. All of this yapping is to basically say that the best strategy to winning this board is to use up all of your boosters by the time you get at least 3 of them, preferably 4, which means that the best counter strategy against this is to also try to use up all of your boosters when you get at least 3 of them, which basically means this entire board is completely dependent on RNG. Great, more luck-based elements in Mario Party Island Tour, just what it needed. It's a shame honestly, because the idea of this board does sound kinda neat, and I at least like the little Mario Galaxy homages sprinkled around the board, but the execution of it shows just how super flawed this board is to the core. Next is Kamek's Carpet Ride. So the gimmick in this one is that you don't roll a dice to move on the board, instead you move using these numbered cards. And yeah, that's about it. I blinked and the game was over. And the final board is Bowser's Peculiar Peak. So, you know how most of these boards make you reach to the end first to win? Well, what if they made a board where if you reach to the end first, you lose? Yeah, that's pretty much just Bowser's Peculiar Peak. It's just the anti-version of Perilous Palace Path. The exact same rule set, but the winning condition is now completely reversed. The game now ends when someone reaches to the end and gets yeeted to the sky by Bowser. After that, the winner is determined by who was the furthest away from Bowser when the game ends. Even though this board is mostly the same as the aforementioned Palace Path, there are a couple of changes here that make this board better. For one thing, the board itself is smaller, meaning it now doesn't take roughly an hour long to complete. Thank the heavens. Another thing, those awful completely luck-based challenges from Palace Path are mostly gone in this board. Now there's only 1 instead of 3, which is a massive improvement. And finally, the absolutely pointless items from Palace Path are flat out nowhere to be seen on this board, and nothing of value was lost. Overall, I'd say that this board is the best one in the entire game, though it's still not really that entertaining, so I wouldn't exactly call this board the best quote unquote, but more so the least worst. And that's all of the boards in the game, or at the very least nearly all of them. There is technically one more, it's a board themed around Shy Guy, but I couldn't get any footage of this one. The reason why is because this board requires 3 to 4 human players to play on it. And I only had one local friend with me, so this just wasn't going to happen. I've got a feeling that even if I did have more friends near me, I don't think I'd be able to convince even one of them to play this game with me, let alone 2 or 3. Shut the fuck up! So yeah, not talking about this board, womp womp. As for the minigame modes, there aren't that many unique ones unfortunately. Both of the presented modes in the minigame section of the menu are just ripped from Mario Party 9. Also, for some reason, there are some exclusive minigames that you can play in the free play section of all places, so I'm gonna talk about those now. First off, exclusive minigames that uses the 3DS's AR cards. Yeah, remember those things? You used them for like 10 minutes when you first got your 3DS and then never used them again and then proceed to lose them like a month later? Those AR cards. Unfortunately, I've lost my original AR cards many years ago, so I had no choice but to commit forgery. And yeah, these are fine, mostly a novelty, but I guess I appreciate them being here. And the final exclusive minigame to play here is the Choicest Voice. Now there's a good chance that even if you had never played Island Tour before, you may be familiar with this minigame in particular, since there exist many videos online with millions of views covering this minigame and this minigame alone, and the reason for that is very simple. And the reason is that this minigame is really funny. So all you do in this minigame is make imitations of Mario characters, and the 3DS will pick it up via its microphone and then play a recording of that back to you. But there's a small issue with this, and it's that the microphone on the 3DS is complete dookie. Not only is it just generally low quality, but it's also prone to peaking, meaning if you're just a little bit too loud with your imitation, it will completely ruin your recording, making moments where you say something like this, Mario, end up coming out sounding like this. And it is hilarious. Not only is it just kind of silly to imitate Mario characters in general, but getting to hear how the 3DS's microphone completely destroys your recording is the most entertaining thing imaginable. It's pretty much just the embodiment of loud equals funny. The choicest voice is without a doubt the most fun thing you can do in Island Tour. It is simply incredible. Which now leaves us with the final mode in this game, Bowser's Tower. So in this mode you have to battle a series of CPUs and a bunch of minigames and make it to the top of the tower and defeat Bowser. I wrote him as puzzles in my script, what the hell? Initially I thought this mode was fine for what it offered at the start, and it is also here where you get to play the boss minigames, which are kinda cool. However, the game kept on going, and I was making very slow progress with making it to the top of the castle. I eventually got so bored by the repetitiveness that I decided to look up what happens when you make it to the top of the tower and defeat Bowser. So as it turns out that after you presumably defeat Bowser in his boss minigame, the real Bowser then shows up and reveals that the Bowser you fought was a decoy all along. He then punches you in the nads, you get sent blasting off to the sky Team Rocket style, and Bowser says you are always welcome to come back anytime. So basically playing this entire game mode ended up amounting to nothing and was pretty much just a gigantic waste of time. Cool, amazing, epic one might even call it.
This is epic.
And the final thing worth noting is that there is also a shop in this game where you can buy bubbles with points you earn from the game. I thought that these would be like little 3D models that you can collect and interact with, like a bunch of snow globes or something, but no, these bubbles are actually just character voice clips and music from the game.
You gotta get him at Huck too and spit all my—
And just like that, I think I'm done. That was Mario Party Island Tour. It fucking sucks. Usually I'm very open to new experimental game ideas. God knows we need new experimental ideas in our entertainment more than ever now, but none of the new board game ideas in Island Tour managed to achieve being at least decent. The best of these boards were just okay, and the worst of these boards were so terrible that I'm surprised they even got through the testing phases. Not only are the boards incredibly boring to play, but they are also paired with a number of bad gimmicks and issues that just make the overall experience worse. Like one that I haven't even mentioned up until now is that when it's the beginning of any CPU player's turn, you have to press the A button or tap the bottom screen for them to actually begin playing their turn. Like, why? Mario Party 9 CPUs were perfectly capable of doing everything by themselves without your input, so why can these bozos nearly do the same thing except for needing to start their turn? It's a minor problem, I know, but my god, does it just make the overall game even more irritating to play. And once you're done playing through all of the incredibly mundane boards, you'll realize that there is nothing else you can really do in this game. You can either play through all of the non-unique minigame modes, collect a bunch of MP3 files with the points you collect, or you can play the choicest voice, which is a 10 out of 10. And I'm being serious, if it weren't for this minigame being ironically enjoyable and the rest of the standard minigames being somewhat decent, there would be nothing of genuine positivity to say about this game. So shout out to the choicest voice and the rest of the minigames from Island Tour, because they managed to carry this game from being a 1 out of 10 to a 2 out of 10. Congratulations. This is without a doubt one of the worst video games I've ever played. I never really want to think about playing this game ever again. Could you imagine the alternate timeline where my dad's coin landed on heads and I got this game instead of Luigi's Mansion 2? It probably would have been hell.
I would not want to live in a world like this. This looks like Skibbity Toilet.
Mario Party 10 is a game that I've actually played before, a lot of apparently, yet for whatever reason, I don't really recall much about this game. All I remembered from it was that it was the only new Wii U game I could play in between the time I got Smash 4 and Super Mario Maker, which isn't exactly a good sign since I can recall more fond memories of those other games, but for some reason not this one. Oh, and here's a fun fact, my original copy of the game that I had since 2015 that is in pristine condition, no scratches on the back or anything, just doesn't work anymore. And I seriously don't know why. Years ago it was perfectly fine and now it's just dead. I had to very quickly get a second copy of the game to see if this was a sign that it was finally time to put my childhood Wii U out of its misery. To the dismay of my nearly 11-year-old Wii U console, the second copy actually works, so the video can go on. You know, if I had a nickel for every time I needed to buy a second replacement copy of a Wii U game for the sake of making a YouTube video, I'd have 2 nickels. Ha ha, get it? It's a reference to the Phineas and Ferb movie. What a very funny and original joke. So upon booting up Mario Party 10, you'll notice that it features 3 main modes: Mario Party, Bowser Party, and
Amiibo! Amiibo!
yeah, we'll get there when the time comes. So first off, there's the Mario Party mode. After you choose the number of players, choose your characters, and finally pick which board to play on, you will very quickly discover something about Mario Party 10 as soon as the actual game begins. And that discovery is the feeling of deja vu. Yeah, this is just Mario Party 9 again. The game mechanics in this mode are exactly the same as in that game. Same car mechanics, same mini-stars objectives, similar board layouts and events. It's Mario Party 9 again. Which, hey, I said I liked the gameplay from that game, so that automatically means I like it here in Mario Party 10 as well, right? No, actually. You see, it's one thing to release an entirely original game, but it's a whole other thing to release a sequel to that original game. Because now there comes a new set of expectations that the sequel has to surpass. Normally, what I usually expect from sequel games is either evolving what came before, improving on the previous game's shortcomings, or if I really love the game, I would also be fine with just having more of the same. And that's where Mario Party 10 comes in and completely fails on doing any of these 3. The Mario Party mode in this game doesn't feature enough improvements in the gameplay to make it that much different from its predecessor game. With that said, there are a few changes here that makes the gameplay a little bit better and at the same time a little bit worse. For example, when you land on a dice block space, you can now time a wheel to obtain a certain dice block you want, rather than 9 just picking you one randomly. That's a good change. But the game also had some of the mechanics from the previous game be completely removed. The captain events are now gone, meaning you don't really get to engage around the board so much, and also you don't even roll a dice to determine the turn order. That's a Mario Party staple. How can you just remove that? All of these changes combined doesn't make the gameplay of Mario Party 10 better or worse than Mario Party 9. It's just more of the same. Which is disappointing because while I thought Mario Party 9 was alright, there were still some big flaws with that game that I wish Nintendo would have improved on. Which now leaves us with the only other thing left to talk about in this mode, the boards. Well, firstly, they skimped out on the amount of new boards you get in this game. Mario Party 9 offered 7 new boards, but now there's only 5 new boards in Mario Party 10. That blows. And the gimmicks to most of these boards are a lot less interesting compared to the ones from 9, which honestly makes the game a whole lot less interesting to play. Only 2 boards feature gimmicks that I would say make them interesting to play, while the rest are just perfectly serviceable but nothing too exciting. But what's not serviceable is the settings they went with in these boards. Nearly all of the boards in Mario Party 10 feature environments and themes that were already used in Mario Party 9, or at least ones that look very similar to each other. Mushroom Park, it's Toad Road. Haunted Trail, it's Boo's Horror Castle. Whimsical Waters, it's Blooper Beach. And Chaos Castle, it's Magma Mine. That last one especially sucks since Mario Party 9 took what could have been a very uninteresting lava-themed board environment and actually made it unique by having you go up a mine. But in this game, the lava-themed board is just a generic-ass new Super Mario Bros. Bowser Castle setting. Like, come on, man. I was this close to writing off all of the boards in this game as uninteresting and nothing unique compared to the previous boards from Mario Party 9. That was until I got to the second to last board in this game, Airship Central. Airship Central is the best board in the entire game, and that is because it felt like this was the only board the developers actually tried to bring something new. First off, the setting of this board is this bright golden sky environment, and I honestly really vibe with it. Besides the really nice setting, the main gimmick that happens on this board is what really makes it stand out. During the halfway point, Bowser's airship will appear and will shoot anyone that lands in its way, making you need to strategize on which dice box you'll want to use up to avoid getting hit. And when everyone arrives near the end of the board, you'll all get a chance to attack the airship and strike it down. It's a somewhat simple addition, but you know what? I really like it. It makes playing this board feel more like you're all going through a journey instead of just going from start to finish on a board, and that's what makes it more unique compared to any of the other boards in this game. Ultimately though, besides this board, the entire experience of playing the Mario Party mode in Mario Party 10 is very unremarkable. It's just more of the same from 9, which is not exactly a praise from me as there was plenty of room for improvement from that game that this mode didn't bother to fix. Now for the Bowser Party. If you were a fan of Nintendo during this era, which if you actually were, I'm very sorry, you would recall Bowser Party being the starring mode of Mario Party 10. It was everywhere in the publicity of this game. Trailers, commercials, the stinking box art even. This was the thing that Nintendo showcased in all of the marketing, so I feel pretty confident that this this mode is where the game is finally going to get, and just like that, I'm back to complaining. So one thing I quickly noticed from all of the footage and commercials showing this mode was the boards from the Mario Party mode being reused, which I thought was kinda lame, but whatever. I just casually assumed that Bowser Party would just have 5 boards to play on, all of which being recycled from the Mario Party mode. But no, apparently that's asking too much from Mario Party 10 2015 for Wii U, because they actually did recycle modes from the Mario Party mode, but only 3 of them instead of all 5. Haunted Trail and Airship Central are flat out nowhere to be seen in Bowser Party, already off to a great start I see. So here's a rundown of how Bowser Party works. It's a game of 1v4. Up to 4 players get to play as Team Mario using weird modes, while 1 other player gets to play as Bowser using the Wii U gamepad. By the way, just a small side tangent, but as I begin to use my Wii U more often to make these videos, my feelings on the gamepad have really soured a lot in recent times. It's good for the games that are specially designed to use the controller in fun and unique ways, but let's be honest with ourselves, this thing sucks more often than it doesn't. The screen is low res, the battery life is flat out awful, and the entire thing being made out of this glossy plastic makes me want to scream. Anyways, if you're on Team Mario, you're pretty much doing almost the same car mechanic gameplay as before, except everyone in the car is now actively working together to reach the end, and instead of collecting mini stars, you collect hearts. After every member of Team Mario goes through a full turn, Bowser then gets his turn to roll 4 dice blocks. If he is successful in catching up with Team Mario, a Bowser minigame will occur, all of which revolving around Bowser attacking the other players, with the hearts that Team Mario collected for themselves acting as their HP. The game ends when either at least one member from Team Mario reaches the end of the board and obtains a star, or when Bowser eliminates every member from Team Mario. This would honestly be a somewhat alright mode, but there are 2 problems I have with it that ultimately bring this mode down. Issue 1, unbalanced gameplay. So when Bowser manages to take away all of the hearts from one member of Team Mario, that member can't roll on the board anymore, which now limits how much progress Team Mario can make on their turns. Despite this, Bowser still retains his 4 dice blocks, meaning the Bowser player can just target one of the Team Mario members until they die, and just like that, they now have a big advantage. Bowser is really OP in this mode, from being able to do a reroll with his dice in each turn if he doesn't roll high enough, to the minigames being really brutal to the Team Mario players. Bowser is simply given higher odds to win in Bowser Party. Out of the 3 matches of Bowser Party I recorded, Bowser won 2 out of those 3 matches. And the reason why he didn't win that one match is because the last remaining Team Mario member with only 2 hearts left on them got lucky in guessing which of the 3 enemies had the star at the end of the board. If Toad hadn't picked the right enemy, he would have been turned into a stuffed mushroom. But ultimately, the balancing problem can be somewhat excusable. These party games are always going to have some kind of element of luck and unfairness to them, so I can kinda forgive it. But what I can't forgive is the second problem with Bowser Party, and the one thing that ultimately killed off any long-term interest with this mode: lack of replayability. I've already brought up that you can only play on 3 different boards in this mode, but then there are the mini-games you play in this mode. How many times have I said the word mode in this video? It's probably an annoying amount of times. Mode. So I should mention now that the Bowser minigames are the only set of minigames you can play in Bowser Party. The standard minigames are flat out not playable here. And do you want to take a guess as to how many Bowser minigames there are in Mario Party 10? Here you go, I'll give you a hint. That's right, only 10 minigames. Are you serious? At the bare minimum, you're going to be playing at least 3 minigames each time you play a round of Bowser Party. This is just flat out not enough minigames to make Bowser Party a game mode that you'd want to play over and over again. By the time me and my friend finished playing 3 rounds of this mode, we both felt like we saw everything that Bowser Party had to offer. Which is a shame, honestly, because the Bowser minigames really are the highlight in this mode. They're really fun. But whenever you're not playing these minigames, you're pretty much just playing a worse version of the Mario Party mode in this game, which that in and of itself is just a worse version of Mario Party 9. Bowser Party was a massive disappointment. The entire idea of this mode sounds great on paper, and the execution of that idea was, dare I say, perfectly fine. But the lack of replay value massively drags this mode down from being great. You'll very quickly see everything that Bowser Party has to offer in only a few playthroughs. Combine this and the fact that a single playthrough doesn't even last for that long, it ultimately makes Bowser Party a mode that very quickly stops becoming interesting or fun to play. It's strange that Nintendo put so much attention and hype around this mode during the game's release, because for more or less being the entire feature presentation of the game, Bowser Party feels so much like an afterthought. It's worse than the Mario Party mode, that's my take on it. Which finally leaves us with our final main mode in the game, Amiibo Amiibo Party, a game mode that can only be accessed if you own one of these things. For the unaware, Amiibo is a line of figures that Nintendo initially released during the Toys to Life craze. Basically, if you know how Skylanders work, Amiibo works the same way. You tap these figures onto the Wii U gamepad's NFC scanner and they will interact with the game they're compatible for. On the same day that Nintendo released Mario Party 10, they launched the first wave of the Super Mario line of Amiibo, all of which worked with Mario Party 10's Amiibo mode. Anyways, you tap your Amiibo to select your character, then tap it again to select the board, and now you're ready to play the worst mode ever made in Mario Party history. Amiibo Party is legitimately one of the most unentertaining things that Nintendo has ever made in their entire history. So this game mode works pretty much exactly like classic Mario Party. Roll around a board, collect coins, spend them on stars, play minigames. They finally went back to the original game mechanics, but at what cost? Every character is a completely static figure. You just see them tap along the board without ever doing any animations or expressions. The overall visuals in this mode is super boring to look at. The N64 Mario Party games had more interesting visuals than Amiibo Party, and the boards in those games were just a bunch of JPEGs. Speaking of boards, the board you play in Amiibo Party just flat out sucks. This tiny square board you see here is the entire board you get if you scan the Luigi amiibo, and the board is just not engaging or fun to play on at all. There are other boards you can play on if you have the appropriate figure, but they are all virtually the exact same, besides a different theme and maybe a change in one of the spaces. Have you ever seen those images online where people merge every female Dink and Rompuck character's portraits together and realize they all share the exact same facial structure? Well, I decided to do the very same thing, but with all of the boards in Amiibo Party, and here are the results. And you know what, I can maybe forgive all of this, just maybe, if it wasn't for how the game makes you use the amiibo during gameplay. So get a load of this. You need to tap your amiibo on the gamepad every single time you need to roll the dice on your turn. This is really damn annoying. This basically means that you have to either set the gamepad in a place where every player can comfortably reach for it, or you have to pass it around to each other. And the worst part about this amiibo tapping control scheme is that it isn't even consistent throughout the mode. There are prompts that appear on the TV screen that require you to use the Wii Remote to interact with them. It's up in the air on whether a prompt will need your amiibo or your Wii Remote to interact with it. They could have easily resolved this problem by simply displaying these things on the gamepad and having the player interact with them on there. But no, instead you basically have to have your amiibo, gamepad, and Wii Remote on standby just to go around this stupid board with mechanics that can just be reprogrammed to be more intuitive on a regular controller. Amiibo Party is awful, no other words to describe it. This game mode feels like a sick monkey's paw moment from Nintendo. Oh, you guys want regular old-fashioned Mario Party again? Well, here you go. Here's exactly what you asked for. The whole idea of needing to constantly tap your amiibo to roll a dice in a party video game is just flawed to the very core. And I can't believe it took Nintendo needing to do that aforementioned idea twice before realizing that it was indeed a bad idea. And that's all 3 of the main modes in Mario Party 10. Once you're done with those, there really isn't much else you can do in the game besides a few side modes. There is a high score mode where you can try to knock out as many of Team Mario's hearts in all 10 Bowser minigames. There's a somewhat decent marble puzzle game, a badminton game that goes on for way too fucking long, and there's Toad's Room, which acts similarly to the museum from Mario Party 9. You collect points by playing the game normally, and then you spend those points here to obtain a couple of unlockables. There's even an inbuilt achievement list here, which is not a bad way to encourage replayability of the game. It's a lot better than Island Tour's attempt at replay value, that's for sure.
You gotta get
And yeah, that's honestly the best way I can describe Mario Party 10 as a whole. It's better than Island Tour, but somehow worse than 9. I say somehow because on paper, I should like 10 more. It's the original party mode from the last game, plus 2 new modes that are supposedly as fleshed out and big as the party mode, which would be more than Mario Party 9's one big game mode and the remaining content being side modes, so why do I still prefer 9? Well, I guess it just had to do with how Nintendo presented Mario Party 9's content. They knew that the mode where everyone moves in a car on a bunch of boards was the main attraction, the rest were just bonuses, and so that's exactly how they chose to present the game, not only on the menus but also the back of the game's case. Notice how there's no mentions of any other side modes, just the main party one. This led to my expectations on the additional content in Mario Party 9 to not be set so high, which meant that when I finally got around around to playing those extra modes and finding out that they were actually pretty fun, it left me more content with the game. Now compare that to Mario Party 10. On both the menus and the back box art, Bowser Party and Amiibo Party were both presented as being equal to the Mario Party mode in value and entertainment, if not more. Combine that with the lack of any other major side modes in the game, I was expecting these three modes to provide enough enjoyment to make this game worthwhile, and it flat out failed to do that. One is a rehash of the previous game's party mode without any attempts to improve on its shortcomings, the next is a remix of the previous mode that gets incredibly old to play really quickly, and the last one is just garbage. It ends up making Mario Party 10 a game that simultaneously offers more than Mario Party 9 and also less. Ultimately, I would call 10 a downgrade compared to 9. There's no good reason why you should get this game if you already own Mario Party 9, especially if you don't own a Wii U, a console that's only becoming increasingly less relevant year after year.
Looks like you're stuck with the Wii U, you punk bitch.
And it's here that I noticed that I haven't really given my overall thoughts on Mario Party 10. I just kind of compared it to another game and bashed it for being worse than it. So, this game is a 4 out of 10. I don't really like it. There you go. I want to move on now.
Hard-locking gift and I can't get out. I'm in
Mario Party Star Rush is a game that kinda just came and went, even more so than any of the other games in this video. And it probably had to do with the somewhat unfortunate timing of the game's release. You see, Star Rush was initially released internationally in October of 2016, which happened to be the exact same month when the Nintendo Switch was officially revealed. Suddenly, the attention of every single Nintendo fan has moved over to discussing and getting excited for more Switch news. Star Rush would eventually be released here in North America a month later, but by then nobody really cared anymore. Oh wow, another Mario Party game that doesn't play like the original games. Who cares? Skyrim is on a Nintendo handheld. So as far as I'm aware, this game has become the most forgotten compared to the rest of the games in this video, which doesn't exactly give me high hopes, but alas, let's talk about it. The main party mode you play in Star Rush is called Toad Scramble, and before I even played the game, I noticed something really strange on this character selection screen. There is no Mario, no Luigi, no Peach, no Yoshi, no Wario. The only character that you and the other players can pick is a different colored Toad. I'll get into why the game makes you do this later on in the video. But for now, I don't think I could recommend this game to the average Paper Mario fan. I think they'll freak out over seeing this character selection screen alone. So after picking a board, you are now introduced to yet another brand new gameplay style for the series. Every player now moves around the board independently, but now also simultaneously in one turn. And for the first in this video, Mario Party Star Rush finally makes the boards in the game non-linear again, but the way you move around these boards is way different from any other Mario Party game before. The boards are now designed in a way where there are more spaces for you to freely move around the environment more. This causes most of the spaces in the boards to be empty and not do anything. In order to trigger any specific space on the board, such as the item space, you now have to land exactly on it, which means you kind of have to strategize on where you're going to land depending on your role. Anyways, that's basically the rundown of how every board works in Toad Scramble. Now on to what you even do and how you even win. So each game of Toad Scramble has everyone go up against a series of boss battles. As soon as the game starts, a random boss appears on the board, instructing everyone to go over there and defeat them. Once you defeat that boss, another one will immediately pop out of the board. The game ends when all of the bosses are defeated, and the winner is determined by who has the most stars or coins if 2 or more players has the same amount of stars. Yeah, that's right, Star Rush actually reintroduces the stars and coins mechanic from the classic games, though they work a bit differently here. You can now only get stars by getting first place in the boss minigames, and for every 10 coins you collect by the end of the game. And besides that last part, the coins you collect in the game kinda don't really do anything else. You obtain coins by walking through them on the board and performing well in the minigames, but besides getting a star for each 10 coins you get when the game is over, they are kinda useless until then. So I brought up before how you can only pick Toads as your playable character in this mode, and that's because Mario and his friends are now part of the game's new ally system. Every so often, a group of Mario characters will spawn in random places around the board. If you pass by that character on the board, they then become your ally. You can have up to 3 allies in your team, and each of them bring a set of benefits, such as increasing your dice roll total, getting to play as that ally instead of Toad, using that ally's unique dice block, and assisting you in getting more points in boss minigames. This is a mechanic that may sound familiar to you, as Nintendo would more or less bring back this mechanic in Super Mario Party 2 years later. I was initially a bit skeptical on the idea that allies can make you earn more points in the boss minigames, because would it not end up as a game of luck on who can get to an ally first? They give you such a massive advantage on the boss minigames alone. However, I then noticed that when a player player lands on a boss space, the boss minigame doesn't start with all of the players at the beginning of the minigame. Instead, the rest of the players have to mash A to rush themselves to the boss space while the player who initiated the boss gets a head start. And the further away you were from the boss space when a player lands on it, the more you have to mash the A button to get there and finally begin fighting the boss. This is where the entire game finally started to click with me. You're basically given the choice to either go after these ally characters to give yourself an advantage later on in the game, or go out and start the boss fights to give yourself an early lead in the game. And it's not like you have to go out and seek for the Mario characters to obtain allies, since you can also get one via an ally duel if two players land on the same space. A small minigame will happen and the winner will get to take one of the loser's allies. All of this combined makes for a party game mode that, dare I say, is actually kind of alright. Each match of Toad Scramble doesn't go on for too long or too short, the overall gameplay of walking around these boards isn't too mundane or boring, and the overall minigames, boss battles, and boards are pretty alright. I'll be damned, congratulations Toad Scramble from Mario Party Star Rush, you're the first Mario Party related thing since anything from 9 to actually surpass the bar of mediocrity. With that said, it's definitely far from perfect. There are flaws here that do drag this mode down. For one thing, every board in the game besides the Boo Castle one has the exact same boss minigames. Each time you're going to be playing this mode, chances are you're going to be fighting the same Goomba boss, the same Blooper boss, the same Monty Mole boss, etc, etc. Which unfortunately makes this game mode a little bit repetitive to play after 2 playthroughs in quick succession. And the other notable flaw here isn't necessarily a flaw, quote unquote, but I still want to point this out because of how dumb it is. So Nintendo advertised this game having 15 boards, which would make it the most amount of boards in any Mario Party game, but the way they presented this claim was very sneaky. So there's actually 5 different board themes, and each of those themes have 3 different variants that either increase or decrease the size of the board and the amount of bosses. Imagine you went to a pizza place and they were serving pepperoni, cheese, and Hawaiian pizza, and you can get those in either small, medium, or large portions. Would you then say that the pizza place has 9 different pizzas to choose from? The answer to that is no, of course not. That's stupid, and that's exactly what Nintendo did here. It's so dumb. But even with those complaints, I'd still call Toad Scramble a pretty okay game mode. And now we get into the additional game modes in Star Rush, which may honestly be the most hit or miss series of side modes out of any Mario Party game. Some are pretty good, and some are kinda garbage. One of these kinda garbage modes is Balloon Bash. It's basically just Toad Scramble, but plays more similarly to classic Mario Party. The biggest changes are that you now get stars by passing these balloons, and the allies mechanic with the bosses from Toad Scramble are flat out not present here. Now you'd think I would like this mode since it incorporates more things from the classic Mario Party games, but I honestly don't. This weird mishmash of trying to combine 2 game mechanics ends up making me confused as to why I would want to play this mode or who this mode is even intended for. Do you think the people who are set in stone on only caring about Mario Party if it goes by the classic game rules are going to like a mode where the way you move around the boards is completely different? Or how about the people who like Toad Scramble? Do you think they are going to like a mode where it plays very similarly to it but removes everything that makes it unique? And I guess I wouldn't be making these arguments if Balloon Bash was at least fun, but it's really not. You can only pick between 3 boards in this mode, all of which are very dull in terms of design and themes. Minigames happen way too often than I would have liked, and in the end it just made me want to return to Toad Scramble, or better yet, a completely different Mario Party game with the original mechanics. Balloon Bash is a game mode that feels like it's trying to please both parties, and I can only assume that this mode ended up pleasing neither parties. This mode is a pile of poo, but what isn't a pile of poo is the Coinathlon. In this mode, you and up to 3 other players compete in collecting coins in a set of 3 minigames, and for every coin you collect, you move 1 space on this very long track, and whoever completes 3 full laps around the track first is the winner. And you know what? I actually had a lot of fun with this mode. It's really satisfying to go after as many coins as you can in these minigames, and there are also items that can be used to give the player an advantage or give other players a disadvantage, basically making the game a lot more engaging to play. Coinathlon is pretty much the second best mode in the game next to Toad Scramble. Obviously it's not as fleshed out or as huge in scope compared to that, but for what it offers, Coinathlon is a pretty good side mode. It looks like the next Mario Party game is actually going to bring back this mode, but with a lot more substance to it, so I'm really excited to try that out once I get my hands on the game. And the final additional mode that I was able to try out is Rhythm Recital, and I don't really know what to make of it, honestly. So it's a rhythm game mode where all you do is tap one button in time to a Mario song of your selection, and it's really damn lame. Not aggressively terrible, but also far from fun. I can't help but compare this mode to Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix, because that's also another game on the 3DS where you mostly press one button in time with the music. But because of Rhythm Heaven's spectacular visual and sound design, it makes the simple act of just pressing buttons in time with the music a lot more engaging, while this just puts me to sleep. There are a few more modes in this game, but I'm not going to elaborate on them as I'm limited on time, and the extra modes are locked behind the player via a level up system. Though if I have to take a guess as to how I would feel about the remaining modes, here's what I'd probably think. Mario Shuffle reminds me too much of Amiibo Party from Mario Party 10, so it's probably garbage. Challenge Tower looks decently fun. I think I would have liked this one if I had unlocked it, and Boo's Block Party just looks like any other Mario Party puzzle game, meaning it probably would have been fine. And that was Mario Party Star Rush. It was shockingly okay. This game felt like the result of Nintendo throwing a bunch of party game ideas on the wall and seeing which ones would stick, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. It's good that game ideas like Toad Scramble and Coinathlon ended up being some of the best modes I covered in this video. But it's also bad since it does make the game as a whole feel sort of directionless, and a few of the modes that are offered here are pretty uneventful. But hey, they had a new idea and the execution of it wasn't completely miserable. I'd still call that a win. This game is not going to make it to anyone's top 5 favorite Mario Party games list or anything, but if what you saw here seems interesting enough to you, I recommend checking this one out. You know, it's genuinely good to finally go back to talking positively about these games after ranting about how much I didn't like Island Tour or 10. Hopefully the series can keep this up until the very end. I think I may have spoken too soon. Here we are, what is arguably considered as the worst game in the dark age of this series, Mario Party The Top 100. Released in 2017 on the Nintendo 3DS, which was honestly a very strange platform choice for Nintendo to make. Think about it, you're making a game that's supposed to celebrate a series of games that were released on Nintendo home consoles, and you thought the best platform to release this type of game on was not a Nintendo home console? Like, what? Also, this game was one of the many 3DS game releases to tragically come out after the Nintendo Switch had already been released, which meant that pretty much nobody besides a handful of Nintendo dorks were even going to know about this game's existence, let alone be interested in actually buying it. I know I haven't even talked about the game yet, but it already feels like such a waste to make a Mario Party game that had a really good idea behind it only to then publish it on a system that by then had practically lost all of its relevancy. Regardless of that, even with the general consensus saying this game is bad, I'm still going to give the top 100 a fair go, because I've already gone this far on this stupid journey, I might as well finish it. Mario Party The Top 100's main selling point is that it features 100 of the best minigames across every mainline Mario Party up to that point. The top 100 minigames according to who? I have no idea. As far as I know, Nintendo never polled anyone on what their favorite Mario Party minigames were, so this is just what Nintendo assumed are the top 100 minigames across Mario Party 1 to 10. And the minigame list itself is fine. Obviously, it's very subjective on what is considered to be the top 100 minigames across the Mario Party series. I can complain all I want about how they didn't include dungeon duos in this game in favor of putting fucking crank to rank, but at the end of the day, everybody's opinion on which minigames should have been in this game is going to widely differ, so there's no point in complaining about it. Instead, however, I will complain about the amount of minigames they chose from each Mario Party game, because I am very confused. So you'd think Nintendo would go for the obvious choice of picking an even amount of minigames across the series to make the list. 10 minigames across 10 Mario Party games. There you go, there's your 100. But no, they didn't go for that route and just chose a random number of minigames across all 10 of the games, and it really does feel random. How come they only chose 4 minigames from Mario Party 10, but when it came to picking how many minigames they should get from Mario Party 5, how did they land on 17? Like, why? Why this game out of all of them? What makes Mario Party 5 so special? Serious question. Even with these complaints, the list of the top 100 Mario Party minigames that Nintendo chose is perfectly alright. It is nice to see this many classic minigames be remastered and even altered to work on the 3DS, though I do think Nintendo could have done a much better job at giving each Mario Party game equal representation. But minigames only make half of a Mario Party. What about the modes? The first main mode offered is Minigame Island. In this solo mode, you're pretty much just playing every single minigame back to back against a series of CPU players, but it's done in a way that actually makes it quite engaging. After you play a minigame, you'll be given a rank based on how well you performed at the minigame. If you get first place, you'll get 3 mini stars, 2 mini stars if you get second, 1 if you get third, and none if you get last. This is a very simple addition, I know, but it made playing through the minigames a lot more fun. I actually found myself replaying minigames where I didn't reach first place just so I could see the coveted 3 mini stars on the minigame tile space. I guess it just appeals to the inner completionist inside of me, a side of me that wants to 100% any game that randomly appeals to me, as well as a side of me that wants to commit charity fraud. A few other things worth noting is that the CPU players get more difficult as you progress. You can unlock a couple of minigames that are locked away in the free play section, and if you get all of the mini stars in the mode, you'll unlock master difficulty for the CPU players. Overall, Minigame Island is a very simple mode, but there are enough incentives here to keep it from becoming boring to play. You really have to compare this mode to Bowser's Tower from Island Tour to understand how the simple idea of making a mode where you play minigames back to back can be made fun and be made miserable. The next mode is Minigame Match. So this is what I was initially looking for when I got into playing this game, a mode where you play on boards and play minigames. You know, the main attraction in any Mario Party game. Anyways, about the mode itself, it's kinda terrible, not gonna lie. So the mechanics you play in this mode are not the ones from the original games, but instead are the ones from Star Rush, more specifically the Balloon Bash mode. I am very sad. It's already lame how they didn't bring back the board game mechanics from the classic games to play with these classic minigames. But it's even more lame how out of the 2 main board game modes that they had to pick from Star Rush of all games, they picked the worst of the 2. And get this, they somehow made it worse. In the original Balloon Bash mode from Star Rush, you could have picked from 3 different boards. Granted, that's not a lot and the boards themselves weren't great, but hey, you had choices. But here, it's just one board, and the board just flat out sucks. It's small and the design of it is so dull. I don't think it's themed after anything either. Like the first board from Balloon Bash is themed after a fish. Granted, it's very crude and you can barely make it out, but sure, fish. But the board in the minigame match mode, they never tell you what it's themed after. I unofficially dubbed this board the Snowman. And the cherry on top of this entire mode is the way it chooses a minigame. It doesn't just randomly select one minigame from all of the available 100 minigames. Instead, you and the other players have to choose a minigame pack prior to the game starting that contains 5 minigames each. When it's time for a minigame to happen, you and the rest of the players need to choose one of the 5 minigames from your respective pack and place it in a roulette wheel. Then the game will randomly choose one of the 4 minigames, and that's how it determines which minigame you play. Which means at most, you're going to be playing only 20 different minigames on this board, and the chances of playing one of those 20 minigames more than once is now exponentially high thanks to every player being limited to only choosing between 5 minigames from their pack. This game has 100 minigames, it's on the title, yet the board game mode that only offers one board is limited to only letting everyone play at most, if they're lucky, just 1/5 of the minigame catalog. What were they thinking?
Oh my god! It's Spider-Man!
I think I've made myself clear on how I feel about Minigame Match. It is probably the most atrocious mode in the entire series. They did not cook here at all. Oh, and by the way, that was it. I just showcased all of the main modes that this game offers. There's also another minigame mode, which is just a best out of 3 or 5 game, and Decathlon, which is more or less the same thing as the last mode. And just like that, I had now brought up everything you can do in this game, unless you want to count multiplayer as an additional mode, which, fuck you if you do. And that was Mario Party the Top 100. What a piece of garbage. If it felt like my closing thoughts for this game came right out of nowhere, it's because I really did bring up every playable thing you could do in this game. The Top 100 is incredibly bare bones. With the exception of Minigame Island, none of the modes in the Top 100 are fun to play or have any kind of depth to them to make them replayable. And even then, Minigame Island isn't exactly the most in-depth mode either. You're just playing minigames. I think Nintendo really expected their fans to just be content with playing 100 classic Mario Party minigames as the main source of entertainment from this game, but as I said before, minigames alone are only half of a Mario Party game. You need to have the boards, the 10 coins reward, an actual incentive for everyone to give it their all when it's time to play a minigame. Because the moment you remove that incentive, you'll realize that Mario Party minigames by themselves are kinda lame. They are too simple and go on for far too short for them to be super replayable, and at the same time, they are also also not simple and short enough to be something like WarioWare micro games where you want to play them all in quick succession. Playing Mario Party minigames by themselves just kind of feels like a waste of time. Well, unless you're one of those weird Nintendo compilation YouTube channels who can make a video where they just showcase all of the minigames in a Mario Party game and somehow make bank from it. And yeah, a waste of time is the best way I can describe the top 100 as a whole. This sure was a video, wasn't it? You know, when I initially decided to make a video on this topic, I thought I would come out of this whole thing a lot more positively. When I was done recording footage for Mario Party 9 for instance, I thought to myself, hey, this game was alright. I think the rest of these games are probably going to be just fine after all. But that thought very quickly faded away. Most of these games really were just as mediocre as everyone online said they were, and in a few cases they were much, much worse. None of the new ideas these games presented ever came close to being better than what came before. And the few ideas that actually were sort of decent ended up never reaching their full potential or were completely ruined in a future installment. With that said, while it would be easy to disregard all of these games as being completely forgettable garbage, I do think they serve an importance to Mario Party's history. Remember, these games only ever happened because everyone had gotten sick of how classic Mario Party played by the time 8 came around. Fans, critics, I'm sure even the developers as well just kind of felt burnt out from the party. So yeah, I don't blame Nintendo for trying to switch things up, but they really did go about it the wrong way for many years and many installments. It took a while, but eventually everyone started to warm up to playing good old-fashioned Mario Party again. It also helps that new entries in the series are now more spread out than they were before. Like, I'm sorry, but we really did not need a new Mario Party every single damn year, whether it be good ones or bad ones. So even though these games are incredibly flawed, I do think they should be remembered as an important part of Nah, I'm just kidding. Most of these games honestly do suck and deserve to be forgone for wasting my time. Treat yourselves and get a good Mario Party this October 17th, everybody. See you next time.
What are you gonna do, big guy? Shit on me?
Yeah.
Order up.